of the primary IT goals of the Department of Defense is to flatten the technical and cultural obstacles that prevent data sharing across the military branches. This data strategy is obviously part of the Pentagon's broader push to create a joint all-domain command and control, or JADC2 platform, that would connect sensor data from all of the military services into a single network. Hi, I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and joining us to talk about that and how the U.S. Department of Navy in particular is working towards that goal is Thomas Sasala, Chief Data Officer at the U.S. Department of Navy. Thomas leads the Navy's efforts on data management and transformation in coordination with the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Prior to joining the Department of Navy, he also served as Director of Operations and Architecture and Chief Data Officer for the U.S. Army. And then also joining us to provide an added perspective on technology advances, particularly around data analytics, is Juliana Vida, Group Vice President and Chief Strategy Advisor at Splunk. Juliana previously served as Deputy Chief Information Officer in the Pentagon and as a former U.S. Naval Commander. She also served in the U.S. Navy for nearly 28 years before moving to the private sector. So Thomas and Juliana, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to this program.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Thomas, let me start with you. Give us a snapshot of the key programs underway at the Department of Navy that are designed to integrate and facilitate data sharing and analytics within the department.
Sure, absolutely. So, we have a number of different initiatives that are ongoing right now, kind of working at the different echelons within the department, from the secretariat where I sit down at the OpNev and the headquarters Marine Corps level, and down into the S2s and S3s, all the way down to the lowest kind of deck plate sailor Marine sort of activities we have ongoing right now. So at the highest level, we have established a program called Jupiter, which is our enterprise data and analytics platform. So we're super excited by this. Jupiter is going to give us the ability to fuse information across different domains, bring information together, allow people to share information at echelons, as well as allow the secretary to get a kind of comprehensive view of all the things that are going on in a very large department. Another activity we've also established or initiated is something called Constellation. It's a process that we've actually formalized over the last year and a half or so that really allows us to take the needs of the department in terms of decision making and creating operational advantage, turn them into data needs, right? And then take those and turn those into actual decision worthy content, whether that's a dashboard, some sort of analysis or predictive analysis or something like this. And the last thing I'd like to mention are two very interrelated things that we have going on right now, one of which is really data focused and one of which is more broadly IT focused, and that is Supernova and Cattle Drive. So Supernova is the data rationalization effort that we're going under right now, which is a subcomponent of Cattle Drive, which is the broader IT rationalization activity that we have ongoing right now. And so what we're trying to do is really identify those duplicative systems, kind of cut them out and repurpose that money and reinvest them into more enterprise scale systems that we can use moving forward.
Well, and just to elaborate a little, how do those data sharing programs tie into the work with the other military services and what they're doing and JADC2 in general?
Right. Yeah. So especially on the data front, but more broadly across the IT infrastructure, and we've been working very closely with the Joint Staff DoD CIO as well as DoD CDO. And so Jupiter is actually a tenant in the Advana program, which is the DoD's enterprise analytics capability. And so we're using that mechanism that we've established through Constellation to get data into Jupiter and then feed that into Advana. And so we've provided this information to OSD and to the Joint Staff as well for use on the JADC2 side. We're working very closely with our OpNav partners and our headquarters Marine Corps partners to leverage these processes to assist on what I would characterize as the kind of operational side of the Department of the Navy, rather than the kind of business or kind of readiness side, which is more, more headquarters oriented than something that is at the pointy end of the spear, like carrier strike groups and, expeditionary units.
I appreciate your laying that out for us. Juliana, from an industry perspective, but also as someone who's worked inside the Pentagon and the Department of Navy, how would you characterize the progress that you're seeing to integrate data gathering and analytics?
Well, I have to say, I'd characterize the progress as exciting, hopeful, and pretty pretty significant over just the last couple of years. I would say that what I love to see is this continued dialogue, engaging with leaders like Tom and him engaging with his peers across the Navy, up and down, from the secretary down to the fleet units, across to the Marine Corps. It's new. I mean, it's you wouldn't think it, but it really hasn't been always been that way. And another thing I'd like to say, outside of just the Department of the Navy, at the Department of Defense level, I'll just go back to the DoD data strategy from last year that Deputy Secretary of Defense Norquist had put out, but is still relevant. The data strategy, which outlined this VALTIS acronym, I'll call it, but about data being a strategic asset. We talk about that at Splunk. I know other vendors talk about that, but to hear the most senior DoD leaders say that is a game changer. I mean, it truly is, because without that kind of top level support, it's very difficult for well-meaning, smart, authoritative guys like Tom and his peers to get stuff done. But with that top cover, it's so important. And not to go through all the aspects of VALTIS, but it talks about data being visible, accessible, trustworthy, et cetera. But there's language in there that I just want to remind the folks that are viewing, and that is that the strategy itself says it is the responsibility of all DoD leaders to treat data as a weapon system. Not all DoD people on the DoD CIO staff, not all J6 and N6 and C4I people, all DoD leaders. And that is really something new and necessary if we're going to be talking about ever achieving anything like JADC2 or Joint Warfighting Construct.
Well, Thomas, back to you. Given the longstanding traditions, and some might say the bureaucracies inside the service branches, what's different today that's likely to give real traction to these data sharing initiatives?
Yeah, so I think Juliana kind of hit on one of the most important things, which is just senior leader support at the highest level. And the other thing that I would like to mention, which is something people don't really focus on, but I call it a sea change, not to pun being in the Navy, but it's the people that are coming into the department today are digital natives, and this is the life that they live and have lived, and they know no other life. And so they walk into a department that is not exactly where they are in their private lives. And so what you're seeing is pressure on the top and pressure on the bottom to completely change the way that we're approaching data management, the way that we think about decision support, the timeliness of the data, the accessibility of the data. Just think of anyone today on your smartphone, right? You open your smartphone, you have access to a myriad of applications, right? We hope that there will be a day in the future for the DoD that it's something similar, right? That I'm not having to tote my government laptop around and get on the VPN and then access a very specific site only to be redirected to another site and then have to ask for permissions to get into that site only to find that was the wrong site. I need to find another site, right? And so I'm not saying this just happened to me, but the thing is there really is this demonstrable change, and you see people for the first time. And I've been in this business a long time, and I've been in the data business a long time. People are talking about it at every level. And so now the challenge ahead of us is how do we orchestrate and organize for battle? How do we get after this? And how do we create unity of effort and unity of focus, right? On the things that matter to make the changes that are required to create that sea change.
Well, and Juliana, I'll pose somewhat of the same question. Aside from leadership's commitment to this, now what's different today that's likely to give greater traction to these data sharing initiatives, and maybe also what would help accelerate them?
Well, Wyatt, I have to say, having been on the government side and now in technology and the industry side, I have to say just the broader adoption of commercial technologies that are available in the market today is also something that is very different from just a couple of years ago. Of course, there are always going to be special use cases where portions of the department or the intelligence community or other pockets of the federal government can't necessarily leverage commercial technology, broadly. For the most part, they can, and they are. And I think that it has driven a much better partnership between government and industry, as we really want to help. Like, we're citizens too. I want to be safe too. I want my friends and my relatives that are in the Navy and in the Army and the Marines, I want them to be successful too. And so there's been more of a partnership Whereas a couple of years ago, it was not really that way. I think there was a lot more of let the DoD, let the department build as much as we can first, and then kind of sprinkle in the industry stuff, where the gaps are. And now there's starting to be a shift into like, how can we actually leverage the domain expertise, the passion for public service, the commitment of public servants with the agile, innovative technology coming from the industry side. And again, game changer, like huge difference from a couple of years ago, right, Tom? I mean, it was painful for a while. And specifically too, I just want to mention, there's also this like customized technology support that I wasn't ever aware of on the government side, even if it existed. But now there's like, not just, hey, industry just throws a bunch of technology out there and just hopes people figure out how to use it and what it means. But a lot of industry companies, Splunk in particular, but others too, develop very quickly specific capabilities to help the government, help them achieve audit requirements, help them meet the requirements of things like the president's cyber executive order and OMB memorandum 2131, et cetera. And it's customized, it's ready for use. And again, it's here to help the government move forward. And those two things alone, I think, are just really, they're great opportunities for more and more collaboration and acceleration of mission outcomes and defending the nation and securing our nation.
Thomas, I'd be interested to hear your side of that. Aside from the DoD's efforts, like with the Defense Innovation Lab, how willing or open are defense agencies to actually engage with and really learn from leading technology providers on the art of the possible? And maybe what more could defense officials and industry do to work together?
Yeah, I do think that there is more or less an insatiable appetite right now for getting technology in at speed, right? So the DoD's always been a big consumer of IT, and at one point we were essentially the only consumer of IT, right? And we don't have that luxury right now anymore anyway to create that market space because just the DoD needs it, right? We do have to rely on innovation. And what is interesting is the market has changed kind of under our feet. Under the last 20 years or so, IT in large part has been commoditized, but it's also developing at a rate that we are simply unable to adjust to for lots of reasons. Budget cycles, just the size of the organization, and the diversity of the types of things that we do dictate that we have trouble adjusting at speed, right? So I do think that bringing industry in, and as Juliana said, having these tailored solutions that we can just deploy and use rather than buy pieces of software, integrate them, try to get our solutions to work together with the environment that they're being placed in and whatever. I would say in terms of, pace of adoption, just look at the Department of the Navy, for example. 2.5 years ago, there was no chief data officer office. There was no chief data officer. There was no office. There was no emphasis on data, right? And so now we have an office, it's fully established. We have an enterprise data analytics platform. We have data governance, we have data catalogs. We're starting to do a deep inventory of data. We're really trying to look at, pivot from just, hey, what data do we have to how do we actually get access to this data and protect it in real time, right? Which is really important. And just, that partnership with industry is invaluable. And, what I would say, how to accelerate that, actually, my ask of industry and of the viewers here is work with each other better, right? Not that you're not working together, right? But these pre-built solutions that come to us as a package benefit everyone. And as taxpayers, it reduces drag. And more importantly, that if one governmental organization builds something, other government organizations adopting that and scaling it rather than building their own, I believe is the most important thing that we could possibly do, right? And just look at Jupiter. Jupiter is a tenant in Advana for a reason. It was there. We didn't have the money to invest and build our own platform, nor probably we should as a taxpayer, right? So we invested in this, and the flash to bang was 4 months, right? You don't see that kind of time to market in the DoD or the government, generally speaking, without that leveraging shared services. And this is what cloud brings us. This is what these integrated tech stacks bring us, adopting frameworks and platforms rather than individual point software that needs to be integrated, right? And so I think that's where the tech industry can really band together, really help us out, as well as just, forming those integrated solutions out of the box themselves, right? And that benefits everyone, not just the DoD.
Those are some great points, and it's also encouraging to hear those illustrations of how far actually the Department of Navy and the rest of the Department of Defense have actually come in the last 2 years. So Thomas, Sasala, and Julia Vida, thank you so much for joining us today to share your insights and around data integration and analytics in the defense sector.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Wyatt.